All right, folks. You might have seen. First of all, we've been talking about Colin Kaepernick, the Nike commercial. You saw it, of course, a couple of weeks ago. In fact, yesterday, two of the players still are protesting. Actually, several other players are protesting. Kenny Stills is one of those with the Miami Dolphins. And you still got some people who are just stuck on stupid. And so now we got, of course, and you know Mississippi always stuck on stupid. They got to do something dumb. So the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner, Marshall Fisher, says the state police of Mississippi will no longer buy Nike products because Nike is unpatriotic and fails to support those in uniform. Now, we all know that's a damn lie. But then again, really, Mississippi? It's not like y'all have a history of supporting black people, especially the state police in Mississippi. But it's no shock they would have this sort of nonsense when it comes to their rationale for why they don't want to support what's going on. And that's the case. And so I saw this other column in the Daily Caller, and I said, you know what? And it was a very interesting piece. So Chris Arps wrote this column for the Daily Caller in which he asked the question, what has Colin Kaepernick really sacrificed? He's playing on the cap quote in the Nike ad, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. And so clearly, I think Chris obviously is not aware of what's been going on. So I said, well, let's have him on the show. So Chris Arps joins us right now. So, Chris, are you there?
Mr. Martin, yes, sir.
All right. So you say that Colin Kaepernick you're unsure of what he's sacrificing. Have you been keeping up? You know he's not in the NFL. He's been whiteballed by the owners. No team will sign him. And he also has a collusion case going against him, which the mediator has actually said it can advance to the next phase of going to trial. You do know that, right?
I do know that. I know a lot of times when you make comparisons between sports figures like Muhammad Ali and the protests that took place in Mexico, I think those were entirely different. Muhammad Ali lost years of his career. The sprinters in the Mexico Olympics lost parts of their career. I think with Colin Kaepernick, what you see with this situation, he may have lost out on a few years of his football career, and we don't know, his career may still continue, but he has still been being paid by Nike, and he has gotten a very large campaign for this new Nike campaign where he's going to be doing quite well. So
okay, hold on. So do you know
what has he sacrificed?
Do you know how much the Nike contract is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so how do you know it even compares to an NFL contract? Because the last NFL contract he had,
it's not a question. I'm sure it's much more than what both you and I both make.
No, but that's actually
it's not like hold up. Penny.
But Chris, that's actually irrelevant because his last NFL contract was $12 million guaranteed, and so again, but for you to say I don't know,
another contract, didn't he? And he turned it down.
No, actually,
from a couple of teams.
No, actually, you're wrong. So what actually happened? You're wrong. What happened there was the Denver. No. Let me help you. The Denver Broncos.
Okay.
The Denver Broncos wanted to trade for Colin Kaepernick. John Elway said, if you do the trade, we will cut your salary in half, and then the rest of the money can be in incentives. He had $12 million guaranteed from the 49ers. I don't know anybody with a right mind who would turn down $12 million guaranteed to take half of the salary and get the other half of incentives. That's just crazy economics. That's actually what happened. All the other stories that you've seen where teams supposedly offered them contracts, not one team has verified any of those stories. In fact, the Daily Caller, the site you wrote this column for, actually wrote a BS story saying a team wanted to sign him. What they wrote was a lie, and there was nothing to even verify it.
Okay.
That's your point. My point is, my point is, the facts are wrong. Your facts are wrong, and so he is being whiteballed by the NFL. And so when you look at some of the players who've been signed to play quarterback, some absolute scrubs, and you look at his numbers by any basic measure, any understanding of football, he should be signed by one of the 32 teams in the NFL. And so
I think it's more than that, Mr. Martin.
What is it?
I think part of the reason that he's not being signed is because teams don't want the publicity of what he brings, the bad publicity. So you're going to have half. Wait a minute, Mr. Martin.
Go ahead.
You're going to have half of the fans in the stadium that are going to be rooting for him and the team, and you're going to have the other half, if they show up to the stadium, not rooting for him. So I think it was the same thing when here in the Rams Michael Sam, the gay player. No team wanted him. Part of it was because he wasn't good enough being in the NFL, but a lot of it, the team didn't want the distraction that it brought. I think that's legit.
So do you believe it's okay for NFL teams to sign rapists and wife beaters and folks who have actually been tried for murder or who have actually been involved in felony cases? Like, for instance, the Seattle Seahawks, the Cleveland Browns cut a player who pled guilty to insider trading, who is facing 25 years in prison, but they signed him to a contract. The Seattle Seahawks did. So are you saying...
My overall point, Mr. Martin, is that these are NFL teams that are owned by private owners, and that if they decide that they want to hire a player or not hire a player, that's their prerogative.
Do you believe, Chris, do you believe that an NFL team should hire somebody who has raped somebody or who has sexually assaulted or beaten a woman? Do you believe that it is okay for a team to hire them over Colin Kaepernick, who is protesting police brutality?
I think if that team wants to hire that particular player, that's not my business.
No, but I'm asking you your opinion, because according to Chris,
not on a team. The part of my piece was talking about where I felt that I don't have a problem with him protesting per se. What my problem is, I don't want to see it on my national TV while I'm paying tickets to go to a stadium to watch it.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Do it on your own time.
Chris, he actually is.
There's not a job in America where I could stand up in the middle of the cafeteria or outside my employer and start protesting, especially when I'm on my employer's time.
Chris, here's the reality. Chris, you're wrong. Okay, first of all, let's just be honest. Most networks, Chris, let me help you out. First of all, when you say watching on television, most networks don't even show the national anthem. They don't even show it. So you don't even see somebody.
That's not what I'm talking about, Martin.
No, Chris, you said, Chris, let me walk you back. You said, I don't want to see that on my television.
Okay,
like, for instance, ESPN.
I don't want to see the kneeling on my television.
So you got a problem with him kneeling. So if he was sitting, is that okay?
I'm saying if you're going to do any protest that you feel against police brutality or any protest, that you should do it on your own time.
So Chris, when the NFL teams trot police officers out there for Police Appreciation Day, what does that tell you to black people? Like, for instance, in Cleveland, if you're black in Cleveland and you're mad about Tamir Rice being shot and killed by cops there, do you want to see that? Because, I mean, tell me the difference, please, because we know this is the case.
The difference is this, and what I've said many times, is that these NFL teams are owned by these particular owners, and that I don't live in Cleveland, but if the fans in Cleveland have a problem with them trotting out police officers, then they should do some type of action on that.
Oh, so you're saying the fans can protest, but the players can't?
On their employer's time and at their employer's premises, protesting.
But you're not an owner. But you're not an owner, so who cares? You're not an owner.
But I'm an owner, but I watch television and I love
who cares? So you watch TV. Whoop-de-doo.
And I don't want to. And we don't want to see people disrespecting the flag. That's where you're wrong. When you begin to say they're not disrespecting the flag. In fact, the Supreme Court has affirmed that if somebody even wants to burn a flag, that's allowed because of the First Amendment. So here's what I don't understand. I don't understand how Chris, I got a question for you. Here's what I don't understand. I don't understand how conservatives love to go, the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, the Constitution, when the First Amendment, not the Second, or the Third, or the Fourth, or the 48th, but the First allows for protest. So you're mad that an American is exercising the right as an American to protest? Really? A few years ago, I used to be a supervisor at United Parcel Service around when the Malcolm X movie came out. And when I was a supervisor, if an employee didn't show up, I would have to work. So I'd either put on a brown UPS shirt or I would put on a T-shirt. Well, I put on a Malcolm X T-shirt with a big giant X on the front of it. And after about 45 minutes, management called me into the office and said, "You cannot wear that T-shirt anymore. We don't want that." I complied because I was on my job and I was on their time.
Hold on, wait, hold on. What, hold up. Was there a rule? Was there a rule at your company that said you cannot wear that shirt?
It's not that particular shirt, Mr. Martin, but it said if you wore anything offensive, that they considered offensive or it caused some type of controversy, you couldn't wear it.
Okay, hold up. So stay right there. Is there a rule anywhere in the NFL manual that says a player cannot take a knee during the national anthem?
No, there is not a rule.
So, hold up. So let me get this straight. In your example, you wore a shirt that was against the rules of your workplace, and you complied because you were violating the rules, correct?
I was violating the rules because that was the business atmosphere.
No. You said that was. No, hold on, wait. Chris, let's follow this. Hold on, Chris. I want to establish a base of facts. You said that was a rule. You couldn't wear the shirt, right?
Is this the opening here where you feel that you've got me? Just continue.
No, Chris. Chris, I want to establish that you and I on the same page. That was a rule at your workplace saying if you had a shirt deemed offensive, you couldn't wear it, correct?
Yeah.
But over here,
come up with a rule.
There is no rule that says a player can't take a knee. In fact, if you remember, Chris, he was actually sitting down on the bench. It was a veteran, a former SEAL, Nate Boyer, who said, "That's actually disrespectful. I prefer you should take a knee." And in fact, Boyer stood behind Colin Kaepernick with his hand on his shoulder while he kneeled. Somebody who was a veteran who said, "That's more respectful." So you're saying that if that was a rule, then you abide by it. There's no rule, so how is Colin Kaepernick in the wrong?
Yes, but Mr. Martin, they suggest everyone knows that if you're kneeling during the flag or whatever, that's going to upset people.
Well, hold on, wait. He sat on the bench and nobody even knew. He sat on the bench.
They came up with a rule. The rule really doesn't matter if it was made before or retroactive.
Actually, hold up. Chris, you're wrong again. The rule has been suspended because they couldn't agree with the players' union. Right now, there is no rule. Did you also know that prior to 2009, all the military stuff and the anthem, that wasn't even part of it, that the military paid the NFL for patriotism?
I've heard that talking point. That's really relevant to our
It's not a talking point. It's an undeniable fact.
A private business, and you cannot protest whether there's a rule that was
private businesses
or after. If your private employer says, "I don't want you to do this," you can't.
Actually,
you're on your employer's time.
But you're actually wrong because there's a thing called the NFL and the NFL Players Association. There's a thing called collective bargaining. And so if you have not negotiated that, there is no rule that says a player cannot protest. None.
Yes, and 99% of the players are following that because they know what the
Okay. This is real simple, Chris. When you say he hasn't sacrificed anything, that's a lie. He's being whiteballed by the NFL. He has been denied an opportunity to play in the NFL. And I would think conservatives and libertarians will find that to be offensive as opposed to saying, well, this is wrong. Final comment.
No, what I find offensive and what other conservatives find offensive is that we turn into the NFL on Sunday to get away from politics, from a divided nation, and thrown in front of our faces is a protest that many feel disrespects the flag. I don't have a problem with him protesting. I don't have a problem with him doing what he's doing. My point is what I've said many times is just do it on your own time.
So since my last comment, since you say we turn to the NFL just to watch them play, well, I guess we shouldn't have Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October or we see pink all over the place. In fact, if we follow that case, then we shouldn't see any politicians walking on the field or sitting in the owner's box, should we?
Who is going to get offended by pink Breast Cancer Month or what you're talking about?
Hold on, wait a minute. But you said, no. You said, I turned the game on to watch football. I don't want to see any statements. I don't want to see any stuff along those lines. So what does having pink flags and pink cleats got to do with football?
I don't want to see any political statements that can be deemed offensive.
Oh, gotcha. So that you get to decide. That you get to decide, right?
No, the NFL players, the NFL owners decide. They don't want protests on their stadium.
So we shouldn't see. So we shouldn't have any politicians on the field tossing a coin or sitting in the owner's box, right?
What's the relevancy to that?
Well, guess what? If Donald Trump is sitting in the box of an owner and I didn't vote for him, I don't want to see him on TV because I want to watch the game. I want to see the action. If Chris Christie is sitting in Jerry Jones' box, I don't want to see him. I want to watch the game. See, the
difference is this, Mr. Martin. When it comes to Donald Trump, you have people that love him and you have people that don't love him.
And more Americans did vote against him than voted for him.
I think that the American flag is a universally respected and loved thing in this country.
Well, actually,
and I think that's far different than a politician who can and cannot be liked.
Well, I'll tell you this here. Every police officer who has brutalized somebody black or brutalized somebody has that flag on their patch. You might want to go look at the hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick.
What the relevancy is? What's the relevancy?
What the relevancy is? They are beating somebody on the color of that flag. And so remember, you mentioned Tommy Smith and John Carlos. I heard the same thing said in 1968. You shouldn't protest. How dare you? It's all about the flag.
When did you hear
okay.
I was born in 1966. When did you
hear
that?
All right, Chris. Well, here's the deal. You now know.
When did you hear? Were you alive in 1968?
Actually, I was born I was born November 14, 1968, and actually, I just saw Tommy Smith on Saturday at the CBC dinner, and I also interviewed John. One second. And I've also interviewed John Carlos as well. Have you talked to Tommy Smith and John Carlos?
You just sounded like you were there.
Have you talked to Tommy? Well, hell, I wasn't there for the American Revolution, but I damn sure read about it in the book. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I wasn't there for the civil rights movement, but my goodness, I have read all Dr. King's books, and I know about Emmett Till and Montgomery.
You didn't present it like that. You
presented
I'm
sorry. You're right. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, excuse me, because I actually read a book.
And you comprehended everything, the history back then at 2 years old. So I know you're a brilliant man. I thought you were even that brilliant.
Okay, but I'm just saying, but I've actually read a book. Chris, I appreciate it, but Colin Kaepernick he is sacrificing, and he's continuing to sacrificing, and I'm glad that he's putting it on Front Street because it matters. Chris Arps, thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Cowboy.